Greetings, unsettled souls, and welcome to The Correct Views. Sam I.B. Gangi reporting for the Media Speaks. I want to say hello to my live low-def listeners right here and high-def listeners here. So if you're watching the low-def and it looks like you're looking up my nose, that's because that's the Google camera. Go ahead to the H-def, unless, of course, you like my nose. If I were you, I'd just minimize it and listen to me. All right. Michael Krieger, Liberty Blitzkrieg, how the IRS and Department of Homeland Security are expanding undercover work. IRS agents can even pose as clergy. How in the world did something that was sold to us, well, sold to our grandparents or great-grandparents, how in the world did something that gets sold to us as temporary, which was what the IRS was, how has it turned into such a vile, terrible organization? How is this kind of thing allowed? I mean, people have been complaining about this forever, and the problem is getting worse, not better. You've got Gruber out there delighted that they found a new way to fleece us that didn't involve the IRS. But of course, it did involve the IRS, except for the fact that it didn't, but we're too stupid to realize that that doesn't make any sense. That's pretty much paraphrasing what Gruber did. It gets worse than Grubby Gruber, friends. Listen, those guidelines apply only to law enforcement agencies overseen by the Justice Department. Within the Treasury Department, undercover agents at the IRS, for example, appear to have far more latitude than those at many other agencies. IRS rules say that without prior approval, it says, an undercover employee or cooperating private individual may pose as an attorney, physician, clergyman, or member of the news media. How many of you listening to my voice are in fact students of history? I love when people say, oh, I hate the show because you have long hair and tattoos and you're a rocker guy. I guess it's because I like, rock. I guess because I'm in a band, that means I'm an idiot and I don't know anything. I should never talk. I'm a dope. How many of you, like me, no matter what you may look like, how many of you are students of history? How many of you know that you were encouraged and rewarded for turning in dissenters from the Nazi Party during World War II? How many of you know that this happened in Russia? It's happened in China. It's happened in Rome. It led to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. It has been a problem throughout history, what I just read to you. It's not a matter of opinion. It's not whether you like me or not. It is the fact of what I just read to you. They are doing this. Source, New York Times. The source was the New York Times. Anyone see Dr. Strangelove? Across the federal government, undercover work has become common enough that undercover agents sometimes find themselves investigating a supposed criminal who turns out to be someone from a different agency, law enforcement officials said. In a few situations, agents have been drawn their weapons on each other before realizing that both worked for the federal government. They can't even keep track of their own operations. It says here, the federal government has significantly expanded undercover operations in recent years, with officers from at least 40 agencies posing as business people, welfare recipients, political protesters, and even doctors or ministers to ferret out wrongdoing records and interviews show. So what they're doing is getting you to say a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit more, and then they treat it like a drug bust. This is the lowest kind of filth ever, and your tax dollars are paying for it. It says at the Internal Revenue Service, dozens of undercover agents chase suspected tax evaders worldwide by posing as tax preparers, accountants, drug dealers, yacht buyers, and more, court records show. So basically, if you own something, they will come to buy it, and the fact that you own it means that therefore you must not have claimed something somewhere. Maybe you're a drug dealer, who knows, but you overseas taxes. That's what they're doing. That's why they're setting it up. Is that probable? Is it likely? Yes and no. I have already flipped cars before, which means you get a car that you really can't afford, that you have absolutely no way to afford at all, and then you sell the car for a small profit. I lucked into one of these situations where a friend of mine put an amazing engine into the car, something that I could have never afforded ever. And I then sold the car. Well, he didn't write that down as a gift. The statutes of limitations are gone, by the way. He didn't write that down as a gift. This is the kind of nitpicking that we're seeing. And of course, the IRS is famous for planting evidence. They're famous for destroying the lives of American celebrities to some degree, because they love to do that, because it always makes for a good story on how the IRS is out there getting the rich people. Look at Red Fox on Arsenio Hall. Anyway, friends, it's a long article. You're going to want to look it up, but that is the nuts and bolts of it. If you didn't tune in to sit here and hear one story go on forever, but the point is, you need to watch who you talk to about your finances, even if I don't have anything to hide, even if you don't have anything to hide, because things are always misconstrued and turned into something they're not, especially when the government has a chance to get their hands down your pocket. That is a correct view. Friends, yahoonews.com. Traces of Fukushima radiation detected off California coast. I've neglected to do Fukushima as often as I should be. I've been doing the massive Fukushima update. Subscribe. It comes out, obviously, every month. But I usually pepper them in more often than I have been, and I'm going to start doing it again because it's becoming more and more relevant. I wish this would have been an incorrect view. I wish to God this would have been something that I was not right about. Told you that you should not be living on the coast of California. I'm telling you now that their lies about what is safe is not going to prove relevant in 20 years. So when they say it's safe, mark my words, it's not. I've been right through this whole thing, so please listen to me. I have no vested interest in California. I live in Ohio. I'd rather live in California weather-wise, but I never will because of Fukushima. I have warned you to watch how much food you eat from California, and I have warned you that these isotopes, these radioactive isotopes, continue to create massive health problems all along our coast and all over Hawaii. I said that it was going to happen in more and more concentrations and that they were going to push it through as being safe when it wasn't. Ask Miss Milky the Clown. We've been on it since day one. Well, extremely low levels, yeah, extremely low and perfectly safe. Look up Chris Busby, no safe levels of radiation. He's a doctor, for those of you that think that I don't give sources. Extremely low levels of radioactive cesium from Japan's 2011 Fukushima nuclear meltdown are present in the ocean water offshore Northern California, researchers announced Monday, November 10th. Well, they're safe, right? Well, they're safe based on how often you're exposed to them. That is the layman's term for how they decide what is safe. How often, how long are you around it, and how are you getting it? Is it on your skin? Is it ingested? That kind of thing. So it's safe to be in the water, what, an hour? What about 3 hours? What, 2 days a week? How about 4 days a week? Are you seeing why they cannot say what is safe? Oh, it's fluoride safe in the water because you need a little bit of it. All right, well, how much water do you drink a day? In seawater collected about 100 miles offshore of Eureka, the amount of cesium-134 that causes cancer was 2 becquerels per cubic meter of water, a unit of measurement based on the number of radioactive decay events per second per 260 gallons of water. That is one tiny nuclear explosion, microscopic, that when it gets inside of you will explode and hit a cell. It will mutate that cell. We have a word for that. That word is cancer. It says that's about 1,000 times lower than the drinking water limit set by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. First of all, that has been questioned. Second of all, these radioisotopes can go on living for decades. In some instances, like plutonium and uranium, millions of years. The jet stream has already done this. The level of radioactivity does not represent a health hazard for people who want to fish or swim in the area, said Ken Buesler, a marine chemist at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute in Massachusetts, who helped analyze the seawater. Let me pause. How many nuclear reactions per second in your body of cesium-134? And again, cesium, did they test for americium? Did they test for strontium? Did they test for plutonium? Did they test for any of the other ones? What else is in it? that's nuclear related. It says this Buesler guy is a leading crowd-funded citizen science program that tracks cesium levels from the meltdown by collecting water samples along the U.S. and Canadian West Coast. I would like to see these analyzed by Helen Caldecott. I would like to see them looked at by Lauren Murray. These are some people in the field that I would really like to see touch this. A swimmer who spent 6 hours every day for a year in the bath at 10 becquerels per cubic meter of cesium-134 will still receive 1,000 times less radiation than the dose of a single dental X-ray. Pause. I don't believe that the dental X-rays, as they're done now, have been deemed all that safe. For one thing, they have been found to be over X-raying people because insurance covers X-rays. They've been found to be over X-raying people with dental X-rays. The more X-rays you get, the more cancer you get. So, you know, how many times do you want to get that same dental X-ray done? And it says 1,000 times less radiation than a single dental X-ray. What you have to question is what else is there besides cesium-134. That is the elephant in the room. That's why I'm reporting on this. Now, we have measurements that confirm that for human health, when a mother from Santa Cruz calls me and asks it's safe for my son to go surfing, we have far fewer concerns, he said. To date, no cesium has been found at Canadian or U.S. beaches. That's a bold-faced lie. And it's been found all over the tuna that's washed up on shore. That would be the beach, including those in Hawaii, Alaska, Washington, Oregon, and California. So basically, this article is dancing around the major problem, which is the radiation is coming here. But just go to sleep. Be fine. It's safe. It's safe. How many of you have ever seen, if you haven't, go to YouTube, if you like really sci-fi at its best, look up Mars is Heaven. Go to sleep. Everything is fine. Get some rest. That's the nightmare. That's your little mini Fukushima update here. I'll be doing a massive Fukushima update about a week and a half, 2 weeks. All right. One of the most popular videos I've ever done. Look up Bob Costas InfoWars contest. I did a contest for InfoWars, which is how this sticker ended up on my computer. That said that Bob Costas in the NFL wanted to, ban knives because, there were their outrageous response to the gun issues at the time. I thought I was kidding, people. I swear to God, I thought and hoped that I was kidding. Is this a joke? British police push for ban on pointy knives. Pointy knives, like Monty Python here. What is this? Joshua Cruz, the Daily Sheeple, among the Second Amendment advocates. It's been frequently argued that any effort to control the sale and use of firearms, even if it sounds reasonable, will lead us down the slippery slope towards all-out gun control. Efforts to limit magazine capacities and register firearms are just the first steps towards banning and confiscating all guns. And it won't end there, of course. Before you know it, then any state will start banning knives and cutlery kitchen. What a joke. Well, it's not a joke. The new Save a Life I'm sorry, people. The new Save a Life Surrender Your Knife program is in full swing. And police are telling us that they have joined forces in an already growing trend in the United Kingdom to ban pointy knives. Remember the pour door? Now we got Save a Life, Surrender Your Knife. The more it rhymes, the dumber it is. Why didn't this get the Dumdy of the day? Because I wanted to give it the dunce cap of the month, but I don't have enough money to send the dunce caps overseas. This would be my pick for the year, people. Good Lord. Lancashire police tell us that an amnesty program, amnesty, like you're not allowed to already have it. A forgiveness program. It began at the end of August. We will forgive you for having a knife. And more than 800 knives have been handed in across the country, including swords, machetes, and commando knives. I don't even believe this. This isn't a joke. The amnesty, the forgiveness, was extended for a further week owing to its success, Lancashire Lancashire police representatives explained. Banning knives. It was something all of us said when they had the knife attack in China at the same time that we had a gun attack. Well, these boneheads are trying to do that. Listen to this. It said the absurdity of the situation doesn't end there. It says, we've been delighted with the response so far, but our communities have told us that they want an end of knife crime and they want to work with us to make it happen. A call from the British Medical Journal was published several years ago, arguing that many assaults are committed impulsively, prompted by alcohol and drugs, and the kitchen knife often makes an all too dangerous weapon. Why don't we ban spoons so that people can't use it for heroin? Never mind the fact that we might actually eat with the damn thing. This is stupidity in overdrive. And it's happening in the world around us. And how long do you think it'll be till we have an amnesty program for knives in this country? Mark my words. Favorites this show, bookmark it, do whatever. Mark my words, here at 4:15 in the morning, 11/20/2014, I predicted we will have a knife buyback in the United States. Amnesty. NewYorkPost.com, major banks knowingly funded Hezbollah terrorist operations, according to a suit. That would be your money that you put in banks. Want to know how to live without banks? I wrote an entire article on it, and it's free. It's at themediaspeaks.com, and it's got the name, How to Live Without Banks. Some of the world's most powerful banks knowingly funded Hezbollah terror operations by concealing billions, with a B, of dollars in transactions for their Iranian sponsors, the new Brooklyn federal lawsuit charges. Again, it's not American citizens that are terrible people. It's this banking system that has taken over most of the free world that is made up of terrible people. Dozens of victims of Hezbollah violence filed suit Monday against Barclays, HSBC, Credit Suisse, Standard Chartered Bank, and Royal Bank of Scotland, where you should pour your money out of all of those, for purposefully stripping information from the deals, allegedly to obscure involvement in the Iranian banks. Do you know how Ford and some of the elite in this country have been proven to have funded the Nazis' rise in World War II? Well, here it is again, happening with the same kind of scum, just a different ideology. The suit comes on the heels of a landmark jury verdict in Brooklyn federal court that found Jordanian banking power Arab Bank guilty of conducting business with Hamas that helped fund terror attacks. That's what your bank money goes to. The new case was filed by the same attorney who scored a victory, C-Tab Turner of Arkansas. The defendant banks, quote, knowingly and unlawfully agreed to engage in stripping hundreds of millions of dollars and in some cases billions of dollars on behalf of Iran, knowing that Iran was a designated state sponsor of terrorism, according to the suit. Yep. Who cares, right? As long as the money keeps the bankers rich. Who cares how many children get blown up? All of you want to attack Israel, Israel, Israel. I'm not a Zionist, but I'm not anti-Jew. Let me ask you something. How many Iranian babies got blown up at the hands of non-Jewish money that just did this? The problem isn't the color of our skin. The problem is not what religion we worship. The problem is greed, and the problem, to a large degree, are these central banks. Eventually landing in Hezbollah's hands, Iranian money aided in planning and perpetuating the murder and maiming of hundreds of Americans in Iraq during the same time the conspiracy was proceeding, according to the suit. Each of the banks named in the suit has already paid massive fines for conducting illicit business with Iran and other sanctioned criminal groups. And it lists all the money that they've already had to pay for this, and they just kept doing it. Bring the money in. If we can make more money than we're fine, then it was worth it, right? No matter who gets blown up. It amazes me that whenever the Jews, who are so very, very corrupt in their leadership, not their people, any more than any other people, every time the corrupt leadership of Israel does something, then the pro-Palestinian people are up in arms. But the pro-Palestinian people never say anything when Islamic scum does it to their own people. The non-Islamic scum, they're just like you and I. You never hear about it at all. That's my point. Friends, I'm going to do this real quick because you're either going to listen or you're not going to listen. Buy gold and silver. Why? I've been saying it's all the time. Buy gold and silver. Buy it, buy it, buy it, because it's artificially being held down. The price of gold and silver is going to go through the roof. It is being manipulated and held down by the fiat currencies of the world. And the slightest little thing is going to make it go through the roof, just like we saw in Cyprus. What, you think we're immune? They're smaller. They're first. That's all. Earlier this week, Max Salavo reported in an interview, this is Joshua Krause, Daily Sheeple, that was conducted with the CEO of Future Majestic Silver Corp, Keith Nehmeyer. And Mr. Nehmeyer proposed a brilliant way to put an end to the blatant manipulation of the gold and silver market. If all of the mining companies in the world agreed to halt production for a single 30-day period, it would send ripples throughout the entire system. Keep in mind that Russia's talking about not selling gold to the U.S. You know what that's going to do for people that buy gold? It's going to send the price of it through the roof. It would show the phony paper market who's really in charge, which the price of 800 million ounces of physical silver being controlled by 1 billion ounces of paper stocks. Did you hear that? A challenge like this could make stock prices tumble while the price of real silver goes through the roof. In other words, there's more certificates for gold that have to be paid back, in silver, I mean, than there is silver. He suggested that they agree upon a month sometime in 2015, and I'd be willing to bet that the anticipation of that event could make silver prices go ballistic long before the month arrives. Of course, even if Mr. Nehmeyer doesn't have his way, there's a long list of things on the horizon that could push gold and silver back into the spotlight. There's so many factors that are converging at once that if only a few of them come to fruition, you can expect gold and silver to be making some serious gains by the end of the year. What are these things? Well, why should you buy this? Why are you listening to Sam talk about gold and silver? Don't zone out. You will be happy that you did not. It says another challenge to the market may be coming down the pike by the end of the month. And of course, this has come to pass to some degree. In Switzerland, a referendum is being planned. Again, this is for November 30th, and it's already begun. That could bring about the first gold-backed currency in decades. Currently, polls show that support for the bill has a very low lead, but we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. If it passes, Switzerland will hold 20% of its reserves in gold and demand the return of all of its gold and silver held overseas, and will cease selling gold to the rest of the world. A few things you need to take away from that paragraph. I hope you didn't zone out. There isn't enough paper. There's too much paper for the silver that we actually have. People are going to want that cashed. Debtors are going to want that cashed. Switzerland's going to want their money back along with their gold, and it's going to be going in a million different places, and there isn't enough of it around for everything that's owed. If that doesn't come to pass, an even the bigger event is brewing in China, as it threatens to destroy London's monopoly on gold and silver pricing once and for all. Of course, London has been very corrupt. Not that I trust the Chinese government anymore. For nearly 300 years, the London fix has determined the global price of gold. Now China has opened up a free trade zone in Shanghai and an international gold exchange along with it. It says it can go two ways. If China doesn't agree to London's price, then they can set the price higher or lower. This author is betting they're going to bet higher because China has a much greater interest in gold than most Western nations. I think the U.S. owns like 8,000 plus tons of gold, and China has like 1,000 to 2,000 tons. And it says, of course, it brings them to the next major factor that could affect the price of gold. China and India continue to outmatch the demand for every other country on Earth. Asia is responsible for the majority of the global precious metals market, and that demand isn't just coming from the government. Private citizens are getting in on the action as well, especially in India, where gold has been a traditional store of wealth for centuries. It also mentions that sanctions are being put on Russia, which I've already alluded to. They have a total of 1,094.7 tons of gold, which is more than China. So I had that backwards. It says every national currency is racing towards the bottom to keep the wealth from being traded overseas. It doesn't have to be Ebola. It looks like the Ebola thing may be under control, but replace the name Ebola with anything that you can put in its place that could possibly be flu pandemic, whatever, that could happen, not saying it will. It says the Ebola virus would push the price of precious metals up, and he's not talking about the virus causing an economic collapse, talking about the numerous gold mines that are situated in West Africa. There is still, though not as bad, an outbreak in West Africa. If the gold mines happen and people quit going to work, you see everything converging here at one time. If a couple of them happens, the price of gold is going to skyrocket through the moon. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. Sam I.B. Gangi reporting for the Media Speaks, reminding you to check out the Arcadia Grill. They are located on Court Avenue in downtown Canton. Their food is absolutely delicious. Their drinks are made right. When you go there, make sure you let them know you heard about it on TCV. If you're in Canton, head over there. It's right in downtown. If you're not in Canton, if you're anywhere near Ohio, or if you're coming through Ohio for any reason, do make sure that you divert and hit the Arcadia Grill. You'll be very happy that you did. Also, look up the work of Mike McLaughlin, who writes amazing stories. You can find him at facebook.com, and this story is brought to you in part by him. Infowars.com, technology now available commercially can test how toxic a substance is in your DNA. I have been getting a lot of very good news on the science front lately. For those of you that don't know, I run a segment called News from the Science Front every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Media Speaks. I've been coming across some very good news science-wise, and this is another instance of that. A technique for high throughput screening on substances that could cause DNA damage has been developed by scientists. The technology allows for testing of drugs and cosmetics that could pose a risk to human health and assesses damage done to DNA while reducing reliance on animal testing. Researchers say, well, PETA will like that. Then again, PETA, there's nutballs there. We'll get to that in a minute. As more handheld and portable devices on the market are being developed for nanoparticle-based DNA sensing, many are able to detect and analyze organisms 1/1000th of the width of a human hair. It says that in the not too distant future, consumers will even be able to run on-the-spot tests for environmental toxins, GMOs, pesticides, food safety, and more with their smartphones and other handheld devices. Disasters, well, perhaps. Although still not cost-effective for the retail market and not yet capable of handling mobile configurations, the University of Leicester has teamed up with Cleaver Scientific Limited, a specialist UK-based manufacturer, for the development and commercialization of high-throughput systems for performing comet assay. Listen to this. The comet assay, also known as a cell gel electrophoresis, I'll get to what it all means in a minute, is a sensitive and reliable technique for the detection of DNA damage in individual cells. The test is increasingly used as a method for assessing substances, including drugs and cosmetics, that could pose a potential risk to human or environmental health by causing damage to the DNA. What does that mean? That was an eye chart, not a sentence. Well, take parabens, for instance. Parabens are toxic. Okay, toxic. I saw this show, Fact or Fiction, that said that deodorants were not terrible for human health, and I immediately lost all respect for the show because they are. Parabens are toxic. I buy deodorants without them. Absolutely toxic. Well, this would be able to test the exact damage that is being done to the cell by it. You'll also be able to test, I would imagine, for other problems that are going on at a cellular level with this test. This is wonderful news. It says, as demand for comet screening has increased, sample throughput has become a limiting factor. Well, everything that comes along is always too expensive for the average person. Obamacare is definitely not going to help that any. But the point is, this is absolutely wonderful news. And again, like all things, the price of it will inevitably look like it should come down to some degree as this carries on. If it becomes commercially available and you can test your own DNA, it says, like many other labs, we use the common assay routinely in our research, but we have always been frustrated by the current process, which is laborious and time-consuming. Our new electrophoresis method allows us to increase the number of test samples on a given run by tenfold and to complete the assay in less than half the time the traditional COMET process. So they're going to be able to do it quicker. They're going to be able to do it cheaper, and these things will help us in magnitudes of 10. Mark my words. Telegraph.co.uk. Secret of healthy aging discovered in groundbreaking 35-year study. I got the Dundee of the day after this, so don't zone out. But this is the last of the good news section we have here. It's by Sarah Napton. She's a science editor. The writer Kingsley Amis once quipped that there was no pleasure worth giving up for the sake of 2 more years in a geriatric home in Weston Upper Mare. Good quote. But for pensioners who have been following a pioneering health regime for the last 35 years, an aesthetic lifestyle appears to be the secret to a fit and happy old age. In other words, when we're young, if we exercise now, when we get old, we're not going to necessarily be in a nursing home rotting. It says in 1979, 2,500 men were asked to follow 5 simple rules. Eat well, work out, drink less, keep your weight down, and never smoke. Nearly 4 decades on, just 25 pensioners have managed to stick to the plan, but they are all far fitter and healthier than the volunteers who gave it up. Those who stuck to the plan have dramatically cut their risk of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and dementia. Retired teacher Leighton Jones, 80, rides 35 miles a week around the hills and valleys near his home in Caerphilly, South Wales, and walks up to 2 miles a day. You know, and again, my girlfriend can't go with that. She wakes up in the morning, and I can barely get her vitamins in her before she's smoking a cigarette. It looks like it's not that hard to understand how this happened. For those of you that want the nuts and bolts science, I don't want all my listeners to go to sleep here. But, I mean, my thing is fast food. That's my big problem. I could exercise more, but in the summer I exercise tons. It's snowboarding season, so I'm going to be walking up and down hills. And then one more quote from it. It's just such good news. I don't want to just zip by it. Dementia expert Professor John Gallagher at Cardiff University said, the Caerphilly study has made a tremendous contribution to UK science. I would imagine so. So again, it's not like you can never enjoy a pizza. It's just, it's putting us all, myself included, in the direction of moderation and limiting these toxins that we've been talking about too much of the show. Which brings us to the dumdy of the day. Yes, it does. Reuters.com. PETA wins the dumdy of the day. Friends, I'm a Skinny Puppy fan. For those of you that know who they are, I'm not in favor of animal testing for cosmetics. I'm not in favor of any of that. I don't mind testing on animals if you think that a new drug is possibly going to give someone cancer. I'm happier that they're finding ways to do it that do not involve animals. I am not in favor of torturing an animal. I think eating an animal is fine. I don't think they should be kept in cages their whole lives. I don't think they should be fed antibiotics if they are not sick. I am not in favor of any kind of animal abuse. Having said that, these PETA people take it one step further. They're stupid. Ridiculous. It's like an animal worship. I don't worship animals. Animal rights advocates outraged that a SeaWorld float is included in next week's lineup at Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Unveiled plans on Wednesday for a naked protest outside the landmark store. I hope they freeze to death. SeaWorld has a very good track record of treating the animals very, very well. And a lot of these zoos and places that this PETA boneheads want to protest have stopped animals from becoming extinct. I don't want to get into a debate of if it's right or wrong, but you people that don't want to clone extinct animals, zoos are going to be one of your last resorts to keep these animals alive. Again, I'm not in favor of any kind of animal abuse, but SeaWorld, and I'm sure there's been exceptions, have a very good track record. Bonehead demonstrators wearing nothing but black and white body paint to resemble orcas will squeeze into a bathtub outside a mid-Manhattan store on Thursday to mimic orcas held in captivity and to repeat last year's demand, which was denied, that the float be excluded, PETA said. That's because they're ridiculous. It is unacceptable to confine orcas to barren tanks that to them is the size of a bathtub, said Deliciana Winters, PETA's deputy general counsel. No, I'm sorry. The difference between a man and a whale is not the difference between the difference between a man and a whale is not the difference between the ocean and a bathtub. These people are just stupid. The naked protest and temperatures predicted to hover just above freezing rides a wave of controversy surrounding SeaWorld after the 2013 documentary film Blackfish alleged the park mishandled the huge sea mammals. The marine park uses orcas in an aquatic show. Ridiculous. I agree exactly with what SeaWorld says here. They treat the animals very well. They are well cared for, and their health is reasonably are cared for, and their health and well-being is the responsibility we take extremely seriously. PETA, you win the Dundee of the day. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. Sam I.B. Gangi reporting for the Media Speaks. Do me a favor, look up the work of Kyle Court-Delake and myself. Every penny that you give to us goes towards a better show. You can donate to The Correct Views at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com. You can donate to the Media Speaks by going to the Media Speaks and contacting Kyle Phillips. We want to make documentaries. We want to make more videos. We want to post more often. We can't do that without your help. Thank you, friends. Good night and God bless.